Yo, yo. What's going on? It's your boy, Commander Ron, back with another episode of Small Talk. I'll wait about 5 minutes, see if any of my guests join. How's your day going today? How's your day? How's your day? Let me know, let me know, let me know. So today's topic will be about, are we comfortable with this receiver position as of right now? Because we know Ayuk is not coming anymore. Maybe we sign Stephon Diggs. I don't know. We'll see what happens in the coming days, but we need receiver help next to Terry. And what we have now, I'm not satisfied with it. I'm a little more concerned. But if you at least produce, give me 500 yards from three receivers at least, I'll be satisfied. As long as you're producing, I'm good. And that's the key. Can you produce on the field when it matters? And this dude he's unbelievable. The antics, then going off on JD5, then doing all this. It's like, dude, and then you don't want to reinstate. It's like, dude, do you even want to be a commit? Do you even want to play football? I think you are an unserious human being. I'm sorry. You are unserious about playing football. We've been begging. We wanted you here. Jaden was vouching for you. You followed the Commanders. You want to follow the 49ers. We were going to get you opposite of Terry. Now you just want to go on a tangent and a rant because he didn't defend you and all this. You don't want to reinstate. That's your fault, bro. That's not our fault. You don't want to play football. You don't love football. You love what football can bring you. You don't want to play football. So you as a receiver too is done in DC. And then we're gonna dive deep into a little more receiver history for the Commanders, recent history for the Commanders. Past 10 seasons, 4, 5, 6 seasons, and then see how it improved drastically, and then see how it got worse or up and down, or you were kind of indifferent about the receiver room. All right, looks like I'm the only one today, so then we're gonna go ahead and get started. Let's talk about this receiver room. All right. Nobody there. All right, so let me share my screen. So, let's see. In 2019, let's do this. Boom. So, as you see here on the screen, in 2019, this is our receiver core. We had Terry McLaurin, obviously, that's his rookie season, picked in the third round, played 14 games and became our top target. We had Kelvin Harmon, who was drafted in the sixth round, played all 16 games, had 245 yards, and he played special teams as well. We were all excited about Paul Richardson because remember he had that year in Seattle where he actually played well. Then he gets here, he gets hurt, and then he doesn't produce. So we ended up signing a bunch of bum receivers that year. Steven Sims was an undrafted free agent. He had 310 receiving yards. He also played special teams, returning kicks and punts. What up, what up, what up, what up, what up, what up? How you doing today, sir? How are you today, sir? Yeah, Trey Quinn. Trey, that dude, man. What it could have been. Trey Quinn ran a 4.4. Could have been great, but Obviously, he did not work out as we see in the long run because I don't think he's even on an NFL roster. I don't even think he's in the NFL. I'm doing well, man. Doing well, man. And then you have Josh Doxson, the former first round pick who we expected big things from. Okay. All right. All right. I'll see you there. I'll see you on your live, sir. I guess we can group the tight ends here too. So, like I said, Josh Doxson didn't pan out. He was a first round pick and he was released before this season, actually. So, because he played the year before, he didn't turn out to be very good. So, it is what it is. And then your tight ends, basically an extension of the line, but a receiver, basically, is what they are. Just like Jordan Reed, what could have been. Jordan Reed was one of the best tight ends in the league when he was healthy. And I believe he could have been a Hall of Fame tight end if he did stay healthy. This dude was shifty in space. He a former quarterback. This dude was awesome as a tight end. And unfortunate the way his career ended. We had Vernon Davis. Obviously, that was the veteran we signed. He was pretty good depth, and he actually ended up starting most of the games because of the Jordan Reed injury. And Jeremy Sprinkle, he played all 16 games, and he was actually the primary tight end. Believe it or not, he was the primary tight end that year. Even though he also ended up out of the league. I don't even think he's on an NFL roster at all anymore. So, but this core wasn't bad if we could have stayed healthy. If Paul Richardson produced like he did in Seattle that year, I think he could have been one of the best receivers. But obviously, we see how that turned out. That didn't turn out very well. So let's go here to 2020's receiving core. Yeah, Terry McLaurin, Cam Sims, Steven Sims, Dontrell Inman, Isaiah Wright. I don't even know who Robert Foster is. And then Antonio Golden, Gandy Golden, who only had one catch for 3 yards. He was supposed to be another good receiver too, out of Liberty. Obviously, once again, I think he's out of the league. I don't know what he's up to now, but that did not pan out either. He was not a success story at all in this league. But you see, he had that first round talent. However, unfortunately, his career and his season ended injury, and his career ended due to him not producing. Obviously, Terry McLaurin was your best receiver that year with 87 catches, 1,118 yards, 3 touchdowns. Cam Sims was a good backup for that time, who had 32 catches, 478 yards, and a touchdown. Steven, and then we had Dontrell Inman, who had 18 catches for 163 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then everybody else, they produced, but they weren't great. Isaiah Wright, 28 catches, 197 yards, and then Robert Foster, who only had 12 catches for 95. So you had a okay core, but that core was just like, why in the world did we even sign these guys? And hey, Logan Thomas was actually a good tight end for us when he was here. He had the dude was actually amazing. He had 670 yards and 6 touchdowns, which was actually a productive year for tight ends in that year. That was a productive year. And then you have the extension of the running game in JD McKissick and Antonio Gibson. So JD McKissick, I think we signed that year. He actually played pretty well for us in the few seasons he was here. And in this season, he had 80 catches for 589 yards and a touchdown, which is productive for a running back out of the backfield. You had Antonio Gibson, who was a former receiver himself. He had 36 receptions for 247 yards. So that room was actually pretty decent If you factor in health and Terry McLaurin having the year that he did, you had Logan Thomas having the year that he did. That passing game was actually pretty decent, if you ask me. In 2020, we had a decent amount. Let's see here. In 2023, obviously, this was the year with Eric Bieniemy and that offense being absolute trash. Um, but every week we were sounding alarms, getting, hey, we need Terry to get the ball. We need Terry to get the ball. Good things happen when he gets the ball. Eric, what are you doing? Eric, throw Terry the ball. One game he ran cardio. I'm like, dude is our best receiver, but you don't even want to target him. You came in the press conference all rah rah, say, "Oh well, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do this." Oh, I'm gonna preach a whole sermon on how we're gonna get guys the football. We're gonna spread the guys around, yada 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 yada, and then that ended up being absolutely false because Terry only had 1,002 yards and 4 touchdowns that year. Explain to me why. Explain that. Curtis Samuel had 613 yards and 4 touchdowns. Jahan Dotson's rookie season, he had 518 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he missed 2 or 3 games with injury. Jamison Crowder was back that year. He had 159 yards and a touchdown. Logan Thomas continued to be a dynamic weapon for 496 yards and 4 touchdowns. Antonio Gibson had 389 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, as you see there, our receiving core consisted of four wide receivers, a tight end, and a running back. So, yeah. In obvious 2024, this was the year that Terry had. Oh yeah, he said, "I'm gonna go off. You give me Jaden, I'm gonna go off." But this core was not the best core that we had. So I don't. This isn't the best core. We had a good core of receivers that year, but we have to understand Jaden was able to elevate the player's game overall. So in 2024, you had Terry, Olamide, Noah Brown, De'Ami Brown, Luke McCaffrey, and Jamison Crowder. And notably, you want to highlight Olamide Zacchaeus, De'Ami Brown, and Terry McLaurin. And then that Bears game with that Hail Mary with Noah Brown. That game, he made history in Washington. Thank you for that time, Noah Brown. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, Noah Brown, for that year. But as you can see, Terry had his best year because he had Jaden. Olamide Zacchaeus was able to elevate his game because we had Jaden. Noah Brown played decent. Like I said, he elevated the game of all these receivers. De'Ami Brown was huge in that Tampa Bay Buccaneers game and that Lions game, where we dropped 45 points on the Lions and we beat Tampa Bay in that wild card round in 2024. So they were huge parts of our success this year, but mostly it was Jaden Daniels. It was not this defense because it was very, very bad that year. And in 2025, you had your worst receiver group because you had a whole bunch of injuries. It was, and then you had to sign guys like Robbie Chosen. You had new rookie and Jaden Lane. You had to get Traylon Burks from out the street. Noah Brown got hurt again. So, and then obviously in the beginning of the year, we traded for Deebo Samuel. We had Terry McLaurin, who had only had 582 yards. He only played 4 games with Jaden, and then that was a wrap for his 1,000 yard season. After the first game, it was wraps. Luke McCaffrey, made strides this year, but he also got hurt. But he had 15 catches for 203 yards, obviously rotating in and out of the lineup. Jaden Lane had 32 catches for 225 yards, but he's mostly going to be a special teamer and mostly was a special teamer in this past season. So I am concerned about this receiver group because of, can we get production from Luke McCaffrey? Can Jaden Lane take strides? Are we going to sign another receiver to go opposite Terry McLaurin? I'm not sure. And then in 2026, now I think this is the best receiving core Jaden has had in his first 3 seasons. Yeah, we let Debo go. We did. Even though yes, he was decent. He had 727 yards, but he is not a number 2 receiver. He is more of a slot, which is what I would have liked if we had our number 2 receiver next to Terry, but we didn't. So, hey, but this core I'm concerned about. Nah, he's not coming back to DC. But this is what I'm concerned about. So yes, you have this depth at on offense. You have the depth at wide receiver. You sign Van Jefferson. You have Traylon Burks who can be good depth. You do sign Chigo Conquo. Cool. Right? You had Chigo Conquo. So and now we're under a new offensive coordinator. So your passing attack will include Terry, Luke McCaffrey, Traylon Burks, Antonio Williams, Deami Brown, and Jay Lane again. So, see, you're gonna have your number 1 in Terry. My main concern is the number 2 receiver, is because you're gonna have to play receiver by committee at that spot because you do not have a true number 2. That is the main concern. I am worried about the receiver position, but if we went into the season with this group, I wouldn't be mad. And we need to stay healthy. So, man, I'm like, so I'm going to rely on production from both Traylon and Luke. If they can have both have at least 500 apiece, and then you have Terry moving around, then you have Antonio Williams moving around, and then you got Chigo Conquo, who's going to effectively be your number 2 wide receiver because he's going to be the second most targeted guy on this team. So I think that's going to be your receiver group right there. So effectively, your wide receiver 1 is going to be Terry McLaurin. Your wide receiver 2 will be Chigo Conquo because he's going to be second in targets. And then you're going to have a committee of wide receiver 2s if you don't sign a Stephon Diggs or go get a veteran receiver that has been proven in this league to do it. Because obviously Brandon Ayuk is out the question now with his beef with Jaden Daniels and his beef with the 49ers you don't want to reinstate. Dude is unserious about playing football. He is so unserious. So, like I mentioned, if we can get the guys to produce, I'll be fine. But if they cannot stay healthy as a committee, I am worried because I am worried that we're gonna have to go out there and get a Chris Moore again. I am worried that we're gonna have to rely on Robbie Chosen again, and I don't want that to happen. I can't imagine that. But and then you have this kid in training camp who's actually producing well, but I don't know if he's gonna make the team. He might be on the practice squad. So that's my main concern is, are we gonna get a number 2 next to Terry? And if not, can Luke McCaffrey, Traylon Burks give you 500 yards apiece? That is the main question. Can they get you 500 yards apiece? Because that number two receiver is up for grabs. Right now, as we speak, you have Traylon Burks as your number two. And if we don't sign a receiver, we're going to have to keep 7 receivers. We're going to have to keep a Van Jefferson on this roster because we need depth at this position. We need to be healthy. We need to be versatile and we need to run the ball more on offense. That is the main priority, running the ball and having Luke McCaffrey and Traylon Burks 500 yards apiece. I'm not asking you to go out there and get 1,000 yards. I'm not asking you to be this big time receiver. I'm just asking you, hey, go just produce. If we don't get another receiver, go produce. You're young, you're athletic, you have potential. Go produce. That is the theme of this receiver group. Go produce. I'm not worried. I am concerned. But if you produce, I won't be mad at it. So, and that'll do it for this episode. I know it was a little shorter, but I don't have my guys there. Wish we really could have dive in more detail, but that'll do it on this episode of Small Talk. And I'll see you guys next time. And as always, hail to the commanders. Peace.